You know, before we get started, we got 1 minute. I think I might switch locations in my office.
Sure.
I'm going to move closer to the site. I think with my door shut, I may be blocking some of it. So I'm going to switch sites here. Bear with me if this works. I'm walking and talking at the same time. See, the myth is dispelled right there. Hopefully that'll speed up my speed a little bit here. 1 second, let me turn the light on. Okay, can everyone hear me okay? Okay. Oops, I am now stuck in a carpet. Oh, the
I
wonders
feel
of
your
Zoom.
pain.
I'm in our little fax room / anything, so hopefully no one has to send a fax in the next little bit. So, okay, I have 10:01. Let's call the meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee to order. First up, committee members identify their physical location. Tobin, you first.
Okay, Tobin Hope, I am attending remotely from my home in Mount Pleasant, Michigan.
I am Jim Horton. I am attending from my office at 121 East Broadway, Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Next up, call to the public. Do we have any public on the line?
No, we do not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, hearing and seeing none of that, we'll go to consider accepting and placing on file the October 29th, 2020 routine personnel items as presented. Looks normal to me. So, Tobin, you see anything?
Nope, looks pretty normal. One new hire. Congratulations, Hunter Turalski, Park Ranger.
Yep. 10/16, so good.
I'll make a motion that I'll move then that we accept and place on file the October 29th, 2020 routine personnel items as presented.
I will support that. I will add one quick question to Margaret. I think that's because this is the special deputy is a contractual relationship. That is correct, so that it's not fall under our.
Yes, it's a contractual relationship. This one is with Mid-Michigan.
Right.
Mhm.
So it does not fall under our pricing schedule with our, okay. That's what I knew, but I just wanted to clarify. Okay.
Yes.
All right, I have no further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. It will go forward. Next up, we skipped that. So we're moving everything down. So the new number 5 is consider approving the interlocal agreement designated Peter J. Preston as a designated assessor and authorize the board chair to sign the same. Pete, you want to touch this one, or Margaret? Who wants to do this one?
I'm going to let Pete.
Go ahead.
Thank you. The designated assessor was essentially put into legislation back in 2018. The state did not release guidance until early part of this summer. At that point, the Michigan Association of Equalization Directors also became involved because they essentially wanted unity somewhat between the 83 counties in the state on how the designated assessor should be put into place. There are still several counties out there that are looking for designated assessors. What the designated assessor is to be put in place for is if a local unit fails their audit of minimum assessing requirements twice in a row. Isabella County has really good assessors. We don't see any, in the next 5 years of this interlocal, any potential upsets or where the designated assessor would be put into place. After contacting several people to see if they would be interested, we could not find someone that would be put in place as the designated assessor for the county. There's also the issue of a retainer fee. Therefore, I would like to be the designated assessor. We would not collect any fees. We just continue to work and do the process in the equalization department. If someone did fail twice, we would have plenty of notice, at least a year and a half to 2 years of lead time to address anything. I believe that legal counsel has completed their review, had some red lines, but felt that the document substantially met what the act entails.
So just to clarify, Mr. Preston also would not be charging the county any fee for doing this. So not only would he not be charging others, but he would not be charging the county. So he would be providing the service to us at no cost, which we're not going to get a better deal than that. Trust me, either for quality or price.
There you go. Tobin, I don't have any issues with this. I don't see, we got a good history with Pete, obviously, because that's going to be in our next little discussion. So I don't see any issues with this.
No, this makes perfect sense. Have the other entities, the townships in the city, have they signed on to this?
No, they have not. We're waiting for the county to take a look at it. Again, everybody's kind of on a late start here to no fault of anyone involved. But this will be sent out to the townships and get their comment back. And hopefully we'll have at least 50% of the units that will sign on. We've already done some preemptive calls and such just to let everybody to know what's going on. And we also had no volunteers from any of the local unit assessors to be the designated assessor for Isabella County.
Okay.
Kind of like who wants to step forward and everyone takes a step back on this one, right? So it's old Hogan's Heroes episode. I'm sorry, I just went south there for a moment. So all right, I'll make a motion to consider approving the interlocal agreement designated Peter J. Preston as the designated assessor and authorize the board chair to sign the same.
I'll support that.
All right, motion and support. Any more discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. It will go forward. Next up, Pete, consider approving the Isabella County Equalization Department contract for professional services with Preston Community Services effective January 1st, 2021 until December 31st, 2023. Margaret, you want to it's pretty straightforward, but.
Sure, it's pretty straightforward. Again, as you said, Chairman, that, Pete's company has done a great job for us. He has a lot of resources available to us besides himself, which is pretty much all anybody would need. But in addition to Pete, he has a very qualified staff. Scott Cunningham works here, is the designated equalization director according to our state requirements. Pete provides all the leadership to the department, works with all the county townships and everybody else, and we'll be doing this other part too. Really just to continue the relationship. Since the state has changed the qualifications of an equalization director at a county our size, they have to be a level 4. Is that correct, Pete?
It's still teetering. We find out on a year-to-year basis.
It might be a 5. Is that what we're saying? Yeah.
There's no 5 yet.
I'm teasing you. I know I'm teasing. That was an inside joke.
I know. I remember.
Yeah. They're very hard to find because those who are mostly men have all retired. And so there are a few women, but there's very few who are at the level that we need to have somebody at the level at. And when our last person resigned, like 6 years ago, I tried to fill it. There was nobody. I did a statewide search, nobody. And then we ended up, looking at doing a request for proposal. And Pete applied along with a couple other proposals. And he certainly was the highest scorer and has done a great job. So it's certainly in our best interest to continue the relationship. And this is basically the same contract, Pete, that we've had since the beginning, except you're basically putting in a provision for an increase following the, my mind just went blank.
Cost of
living. Thank you. I thought that's what I wanted to say, but it just didn't sound right. It was tumbling around in my head. The federal cost of living. So I think that's a reasonable thing for us to do. So I highly recommend that the board approves this agreement.
Tobin, any comments? Or Pete, you want anything to add before we get to Tobin?
No, I've appreciated every step we've taken thus far in Isabella County. We have continued to address as staff changes and as law changes. We continue to build efficiencies in the department. So that's how we've been able to essentially cap our costs over the years, but it's getting to the point that we feel responsible for the company, my employees that are starting to look towards needing benefits and such. It's amazing how the folks have grown older with me going through this business. So it's those kind of things that we're looking forward in the future, and I appreciate consideration.
Tobin, you have anything to add?
Not really. It seems perfectly reasonable to me.
I guess the only, I'm in support of this. Margaret, I guess the only thing I have to state is, you know, I see Steve on the picture here too, is we've got two fairly high important positions in the county contracted, which is not a bad thing. I just think, and as you touched on it, and I agree that it's getting more and more difficult to find not just people, but quality people in this role. So I do think that I'm in favor of a 3-year agreement. It looks like the get out point is at any time pretty much, but I don't see us to that happening. But yeah, I mean, that's one of these days we may have to have a report on it, just on our outside contracts. Again, looking at Steve and looking at Pete, I'm in full support of their roles and what they do in case that ever gets brought up in the future. You know, but that's all I have to say. I'm in full favor of this. So I got nothing more to add. So Tobin, you want to make the motion on this one?
I will make the motion that we consider approving the Isabella County Equalization Department contract for professional services with Preston Community Services, LLC, effective January 1st, 2021 until December 31st, 2023, and authorize the board chair to sign the same.
And I will support that. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, we'll take that to a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. That will go forward. Next up, number 7, fiscal year 2020 fourth quarter financial management services report. Steve, I think this is you.
Yes, there. I had to unmute myself, but yes. I know everybody's got it in the packet, so I won't display it on the screen or whatever, since everybody has it. But similar to report, I mean, this quarter was a little somewhat more back to normal than, you know, the prior quarters with still, you know, a little bit of hybrid. I mean, I know everybody on site was either on site or remote, so that was, you know, a little bit unique still this year. But, you know, we continued just kind of zip through this, you know, continued to work with everybody in administration and the other departments and so forth as we, you know, work through that hybrid on-site / remote working needs and so forth, and just kind of offered as much you know, assistance that we could there, as making suggestions and how to handle things. Point number 2, continue to gather the bank reconciliation from trial court. They've done a real good job this year with providing us with all the details on a monthly basis, and then we've been summarizing it, and so I would envision that would continue to satisfy, you know, the auditors as we go forward to you know, into the next audit cycle that is underway right now, as Melissa, I know, is working, you know, on various different things, and everybody else is too. So point number 3, you know, helped with during the quarter with some of the budget. Again, Nicole, Melissa, they handled a vast majority of it, but I was, you know, just a resource to be available as we work through the, you know, the budget process and offered input and guidance as was needed. And I know there was a lot of challenges this year, and so they worked extremely diligently. So I'm happy to, as I say there, I'm proud to be a part of that, because it was a big undertaking, you know, this year, as it is every year, but with some new nuances this year with COVID and everything else that everybody had to work through. Point number 4, one of the things we started working on this quarter, there's a new government accounting standard that we are implementing this year. And basically, I won't go into a lot of the nerdy accountant details of it, but as you're aware, you have trust and agency activities. So that fiduciary activity where you take in dollars and then you remit dollars to, maybe it's at the court, and they collect dollars and then you remit that money to the state of Michigan, or the treasurer collects dollars and remits SET dollars to the state of Michigan, and those kind of activities are accounted for currently as it says, they're in those 700 funds, those trust and agency activities. New standard this year, I guess they didn't have enough to do, so they had to, the Government Accounting Standards Board made some changes there with those 700 funds. Now the names will change. They'll be called custodial funds, and some things in custodial funds, by definition of those funds, can no longer be in there. So in talking with Margaret and Nicole and some of the other departments, first I gathered a lot of information on, if you ever looked at the 700 fund, it was about a page and a half of line items, liability lines in there. And so I talked with a lot of the departments, everything from clerk's office to the courts to the treasurer's office, and dealt with a lot of just gathering information of what goes into these lines. And so a lot of those lines, those liability lines, when we converted from the old system to the new system, were just, were transferred over. So it was kind of a cleansing process of that 701 fund that, in addition to implementing the standard, we cleaned up a vast majority of those accounts where we got we had 2.5 pages of line items in there. I think we've got it down to about 3/4 of a page now. And so we just cleaned up I prepared the entry, Melissa posted the entry, and we got a lot of those accounts cleaned up. So it's a good process. In fact, I just heard back from the auditors. I had a couple questions on how to record things, just because I don't want to make such a big change here that it overwhelms everybody that uses this fund. And the auditors and I kind of got into an agreement on how to account for that, so we don't have the courts and everybody that uses the 701 fund can continue to use the same line items within that fund. So I just finally got the agreement today or last night from the auditors to kind of agree with my methodology there. Just, I think that'll save some headache in that analysis, related to those. So that was a big undertaking. I mean, that took, I'm there one day a week, and that took several weeks to kind of culminate into journal entries and clean up there. So that was a big process, probably over the last month and a half of this quarter. The final thing on this page is that analysis. I know that we talked about a meeting or two ago. I know it related to, it's probably been a couple meetings now, I guess, related to the wind turbines and the pension contribution commitments and the jail debt payments and other means of financing those, and so that spreadsheet, and then I know that Margaret forwarded that on. I think all the commissioners have seen that now, or that's been at least sent to them, and I think I will go through that in detail with all the commissioners on December 1st at the work session. But so that was a new thing that was that we laid out that analysis this year, or this quarter. Number 6, again, as we always do for the budgetary process, doing that detailed analysis of the delinquent tax fund. And this year we also, we've looked at it in the past, but that PA 123 fund also kind of looked at both of those funds, similar to what we have done in the past. And if you remember, last year, we did a little more detailed analysis where we went in on a weekly basis and gathered that data rather than on a monthly basis. So kind of carried that process over from the 1920 analysis to the 2021 budget analysis, and did all that and have that already. I know we've, as it says there, we put that on hold due to the current circumstances, and so So that's ready at any point, if and when, you know, we ever want to discuss that, but that is all prepared. Point number 7, you know, the county and all, or many municipalities throughout the state applied for a lot of CARES Act dollars. And so I just, again, tried to be a resource for administrator's office as they, you know, work through some of those public safety, public health grants, the first responders grants. And I know Treasury doesn't like to call it the replacement 1.5 times revenue sharing, that they, you know, they held back your revenue sharing and then gave you 1.5 times of CARES dollars. So we just kind of talked through a lot of those processes and methodologies and maybe theorized, you know, some things on what can and can't be applied and so forth. And because the guidance was quite vague, I think purposefully, you know, so a lot of dollars could be utilized, you know, in various different aspects of government. So, you know, so that, like I said, the guidance was a little gray in some areas. So talk through a lot of that information. Point 8, you know, continue to attend via Zoom, you know, mainly the finance committees and other work sessions and so forth. And be a resource, and then various different informal meetings there at the office, whether again on the phone or on site the days that I was there. Continue to review journal entries. If you remember last quarter, we caught all those up because there were so many that everyone, all the departments and posted. So we caught those up. So this was kind of more back to normal for the quarter and reviewing journal entries and then also. And I know the next quarterly financial information is on, I think, after me right now, but you know, continue to work through those quarterly revenue and expenditure reports and so forth with the Administrative Controller's office. So that's what's been going on the last quarter. Pretty much, you know, standard stuff, but I know one thing that Margaret sent to me, I think Friday, just kind of as a preempt, just so you know, every this time of the year, we normally prepare that county incentive program guidance, or the reports, those 4 reports that get posted out onto your website, 3 reports and 1 link that gets posted to your website to assure that you get your revenue sharing. Normally that comes out in September. The guidance comes out in September, and we get working on that for a couple months. This year we have 21 days, so it's a little bit of a speed up in the time, and so I got started on that yesterday, but just so you know that, yeah, we'll get that all done. Although as I worked through the information that Margaret sent, they had, you know, standard letter that they send out, the Treasury sends out, and has links in the letter to go to their website and get the templates that they use. Every single one of the links didn't work. so I emailed and I called a couple times yesterday, and so we'll work through that. But just to kind of give you the heads up that is something that's in process, and surprisingly they didn't, you know, postpone that December 1st. It's always been December 1st. But there's 3 reports. One of them I got done yesterday and kind of worked through the logic of the other ones, just so I have a kind of a game plan to get those completed. So, you know, no worries there on getting those completed. I actually brought those folders with me too. So just in case, you know, something happens that, you know, God forbid, but if you had to do something, you know, at the courthouse, I'd have my records, so I'd be able to, you know, to continue to do that for you folks and get those done. But so just so you know, that is in process, so we will be on time and on track there by December 1st.
So those are major requirements, because if they are not filed on time and if they're not properly completed, then we will not get our revenue sharing. There's no, oh, you get part of it. It's a black and white situation. So that is a major activity. And Steve has done that for us for 5 years, I think. And he knows the system. He knows how to do it. He knows to make sure to get every single penny Isabella County is obviously eligible to get. So, and then those things go on our website as they are required to do in kind of a dashboard type fashion. And, you know, we have always had our audits Well, since I've been here at least. We've always had our audits on the website. We've always had our budgets on the website. Those are things that are required, and not all counties were doing that. So we're doing well, but it is kind of a, it's always a challenge, but it sounds like it's a capital C this year with the challenge. So
Yeah, they just condensed.
yep, they did.
Gave us this much time. Now they gave us, and so yeah, but we'll get it done.
Yes, you will.
Okay. Tobin, any questions?
My question was what the trusted agency funds were, but Stevie answered that for me. I'm glad that you're going to present that analysis on the jail debt, the retirement contribution liability, and the wind revenues to the board in December. So that'll be a good thing. So looks good.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also on the number 7 with the CARES Act and everything associated with COVID, what do you anticipate I know right now we're basically recovering some retro money, but as far as prospective money goes, what's going to be obviously we're going to probably have to, because it's coming from a governmental agency to a governmental agency. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of paperwork involved in that too. And what have you heard? What have you seen in regards to that, as far as how tightly is that being watched, I guess? Or
Not surprisingly, really. I think they have pushed this. Very unofficially, I think they've pushed these dollars out so fast and so hard. I hope that there's some follow-up, and I hope that there's some, accounting for that. Obviously, to get and retain your, just as an example, the component of your dollars that you received, again, not as a replacement, but the 1.5 times dollars that you got about the same time that they kept dollars from you for revenue sharing. That, they had some pretty specific requirements of what, those dollars could be spent on, and when you had to send in your reporting by, and all that type of thing that I know either Melissa or Nicole would have to maybe speak to that, but there was, when that was due, and I'm sure that, you folks got that taken care of and submitted. I didn't see that, but so that one had some pretty specific, guidelines, but the other dollars, what we've seen, is I think they're going to look at the larger ones, and to us as a county, I don't recall what we got for the public safety, public health reimbursement of the first responders, but on a scope of, the country, our dollars were pretty small, and for us, it was fantastic. It was a wonderful thing that we were able to get those dollars, but on the scope of, the magnitude of the country as a whole, I think Isabella County dollars were pretty small. So I don't know how much follow-up they'll have on that. But just as an example, I know the county didn't get and technically wasn't eligible for any of the PPP loan dollars. But looking at that program, which is, part of the CARES, they're kind of talking of if you got less than $2 million, they're probably not gonna, they're probably gonna, bless you and walk away. So, we've had, unbeknownst to us, we've had a couple clients that probably shouldn't have applied for the PPP loan that did and got it. I have a highly likely, to say they probably won't get asked for those dollars back, but, there's no guarantees that they won't, but, so I just think the intention was very good with those dollars to push those out to all these communities. And what dollars are coming down the road, it's really hard to say, depending on if we, if they do another round of CARES dollars or what, there was, for those public safety, public health dollars, there was, substantially more demand than availability. So I could easily see them doing something more, but ultimately somebody's got to pay for that,
Right.
which is scary to me, and how, ultimately the country's going to pay for all those, doling out of those dollars. But So going forward, I don't know, Commissioner, Chairman, it's hard for me to say, what's going to be coming down the pipe, but I wouldn't surprise me if additional dollars became available.
All right, I got nothing else. All right, let's see, where are we at? I'll make a motion to consider accepting and placing on file the fiscal year 2020 fourth quarter financial management services report as presented.
Support.
All right, motion and support. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same, goes forward. Next up, fiscal year 2020 fourth quarter financial report.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Jessica had to step out to get something and I didn't write down who made and seconded the motion. Can you tell me who made the motion?
I believe I made that motion.
Okay.
Yes. It was only 20 seconds ago and I already had to think about it. So there you go.
I had to think about it. I gotcha. I got it. So I can tell Jess then. Thank you so
There
much.
you go. Yeah. Okay, that we now are on to the fiscal year. I just had the fourth quarter financial management services report. Margaret or Steve, you want to present this one or?
I can present it, and then if we need any help, Melissa is here also to give any backup. So just to kind of start on the front page here, if you remember, these are the revenues. So this would be year end. And you can look at the fact that we were at total revenues was 78.45% of total revenues. Couple things to say about that is that as far as taxes, we were at 67.38%. We'll be booking receivables at the end of the fiscal year for the tax revenue that's come in after 9/30, which is approximately 4.2 million. So just so that you know, we'll be getting 4.2 more million to put into that bucket, I guess to say. Also, not as many of the wind project expenses were utilized, so therefore we're using, not as many revenues for those expenses at this point. We have an escrow of approximately $350,000 left from what started at $500,000. So in completion of that project, so in the licensing permits, there will be no expense to the county. It's going to be a wash. So it just kind of has to sit in the escrow and then get taken out of the escrow, and et cetera. And also, as far as other licenses and permits, we're down for dog licensing. So that's kind of a surprise to me because I know a lot of people have been adopting dogs during this time, but we are down with dog licensing. So I think we're going to get quite a bit of that back. So licensing and permits is at 51.22%. The wind turbine situation that I was talking about, goes up there under taxes. So, oops, I'm sorry, my phone's ringing. Should have had that muted. Guess it is muted. It's just making a funny mute noise. So I just wanted to let you know that as far as federal and state funds, we're at 107%. We received additional money from the federal government for the CARES Act, et cetera. So was payroll reimbursement due to COVID. So that's how come we're over in that area. Charges for services, the inmate housing has been down, as you well know, during COVID. And so that's going to be down compared to budget. And the district court costs are down again because of COVID. So there's less people in our jail because people who were not a high risk, obviously are not in jail during a pandemic. Fines and forfeitures, we were at 67.53%. Whoever that is really wants me really badly. So that was dependent on the number of court cases, again, that we are having, and we're not having as many right now. So there's less income coming in from that type of line item. And other revenue that we are at 126.62%. Again, that's a timing. When we receive our Michigan workers' comp dividend with the workers' comp company that we have through the Michigan Association of Counties, we get a dividend back from them. That was 107, not 70, 107,000. And that was held up by the state. Again, we're all kind of, it's COVID. And then the building authority is now done with paying off the jail addition and the trial court. So those three accounts have a balance of $53,000, and we'll be closing that out, and that was deposited into the general fund. So that's where we are with revenues. So we ended up at 78.45% of revenues. Not too badly for where we were and given the explanations that we have. And you're going to get $4.2 million back. I don't want to say pushed into, but like pushed back. So we'll be doing that when that comes in. So I think we're going to end up, once that happens, in a pretty good spot. Questions so far?
I just have a couple. I can wait to the end. You get through the expenses.
Whatever
or
you
I
want
can-
to do, Commissioner, whatever you want.
Tobin, I think we just go through the expenses and we'll just ask after she gets done. What do you think?
Okay, sure.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead.
So under expenditures, underneath judicial, for the jury board, again, per diem payments and general expenses were low due to the number or the lack of jury trials. So, we spent at the rate we spent at, and that's the reason why. So that's not a bad thing. Saved us some money there. Manage assigned counsel, again, it was dependent on the number of cases. Remonumentation, that's timing. Most of the invoices will be coming in for the July through October and booked into 2020. So that's a timing issue we always have with remonumentation. Emergency management, we're allocating less hours towards emergency management in that fiscal year. So that's why that's down. We're also not spending in that area. So that's why that's down. Community development, not as many of the wind turbine project expenses, which were similar to the reduced revenues and license and permits. There's the escrow, so it's all going to get itself worked out too. And as far as human rights expenses, they met very seldom during the year. So they didn't have per diems and they didn't have other expenses and they didn't do their big rallies and the rest of it because of COVID. So they had a very reduced expenses. Under revenues, for the other funds. So if you go to, we didn't number the pages, I'm sorry. If you go to the revenues for the other funds, there's like a couple of these little boxes on your page. So there's like 2 on 1. That's where the parks are and the special revenue funds. I'm sorry, not the special revenue funds, the non-general funds. So as other funds, as far as park and recreation, they were at 89.49% of revenues. Again, it was low due to the refunds to customers that we didn't have camp when we thought we were going to have them camp during the close down. And the fact that there were just less people in the parks this year. So that was down. Front of the court, the grant reimbursement, approximately $35,000 each month. We'll be booking it as a receivable for the year end in July, August, and September. So we're waiting for that to come back, all of that to come back. Commission on Aging, again, it's the timing of state and federal grant reimbursements. We'll be accruing those payments as they come in. Child Care Fund, timing of grant reimbursements. We've not received August or September yet. Our filing was done timely, so we're waiting for the state to pay us. Central Dispatch, again, it's a timing. We'll book those receivables for the fiscal year at the end. It's approximately $300,000. So their revenues will go up approximately $300,000 once we book it. And then for recycling, the sales are down. When we say sales, that's thing like, when you take your lawn stuff or cut your shrubs or you cut your trees and take that, just less of that coming in. So the sales are down, and then, we had the closure for a while there. So, and also I think more importantly, the commodity prices are down. So that's where that is really down from. We've watched commodity prices go down all during the COVID crisis, of course. And then looking at expenditures, you can look at in Parks and Recreation, yes, they were down on revenues. So they brought in 89.459% of what they projected for the revenues, but they also only expended and spent 75.50%. So it's not like they spent at 100% and only brought in 89 of what they thought they were going to bring in. So expenses are down too. Front of the court expenses are down. Commission on Aging expenses were down. Child Care Fund. The Child Care Fund over a period of time is It was a hot button. I'll just say this. It was a very hot button issue when I got here 7 years ago. And I can take none of the credit for getting it resolved, although I certainly worked hard at it. It was much easier to work hard at it once Carrie got here at the courts and took it on with the local Department of Health and Human Services person. And she's done a great job with the child care fund. There were times that we were putting, and Commissioner Horton might remember this, we were putting hundreds of thousands of dollars for a while into the child care fund. And I think our kids are still well taken care of. They're getting the treatment they need. The residential people are where they need to be. And I think the courts is doing a great job. It just had to be managed better between what the state pays for and what we pay for or whatever. And that you got the right personalities at the table and they got it worked out. And so a big credit goes to them. So I'm not too concerned. Child care fund only spent 79% of their projected expenditures because that meant that they didn't need to, come back to the general fund and have anything added to. But I can assure you the court is still taking very good care of those kids that are in their custody. And, these aren't only kids that have offended and are juvenile offenders. These are kids who are in foster care and residential care because of all sorts of terrible things that have happened to them. So I just always want to make that clear. It's not just the kids who are juvenile offenders, but it's many other children that need to be cared for. Central Dispatch, their expenditures were at 84%. Again, good thing that expenditures were down when you look at revenue, so we're happy. It's a good thing. Inspections, the same story. Recycling, their expenditures were at 87%. So I think that when you look at it in a total, I think that everybody did fairly well for what type of a challenging year it has been, financially and also with our employees who have done a great job through all of this. And currently, and you folks are watching the news and you're seeing the world and you get all my emails I'm sending out about where we are with our situation, our COVID situation, for lack of a better term. It is challenging. It is challenging for every one of our employees. And, we have a number of employees who are out, right now on quarantine. We have a number of employees who have active cases. Lots of people are stepping up to do a lot of things that aren't in their job description and not part of their department responsibilities, et cetera, to keep us all going. So it's been a challenging year financially. I think it'll be a challenging year again. The wind turbine project is going very well, and that those resources and those revenues will be coming in. It's just a timing issue. And, they got started a little later in some of their construction, but I can tell you the people I know on the north side of the county who have watched those go up, they're certainly up there, and some of them are being tested and spinning. So those are good things. I know that at the end of the year, some money was transferred out of the general fund from fund balance because we kind of projected where we were with as far as some expenses that we had. I just again want to tell you that keep in mind that some of that will be made up as we move forward and push some not only expenses back, but push some revenues back. That's it for me. We're happy to answer questions.
Tobin, you want to go first?
Yeah, well, just one comment with revenues down. It's been a really unusual year, but with revenues down, it's good to also see that the expenditures for all these departments also down.
Yep.
And I know that represents a lot of hard work by a lot of people. But good job.
Okay,
I do have one thing to add about the fund balance, if I may. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm
No
looking
problem.
at my notes here. We had originally planned on using about $294,000 worth of fund balance. And I know that I was out, there was a budget adjustment that came through to add $600,000 because of the jail project that we are paying those bills out of administration. We think now at the end of it, we're not going to be using the 1.3 million. We're going to be using about 600,000. So I think that that's going to, again, change our bottom line. And in addition, remember, any of these expenses we have on this jail project will be returned to us once we finance the project. So any of these bills that you see and you're like, oh my gosh, we're paying so much money. This is part of the process of building a major building. And once we decide what we're going to do with funding, then that will be added into those expenses, and those will be returned to the county.
Okay. Margaret, I'm sorry I missed it. You said we'd probably be using how much of fund balance?
Melissa, I think it's about 600,000, 596,000 is what we're thinking we're going to use. So about 600,000, I would say.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, I just have just a few things. Getting back to, maybe I can make it, on the preliminary revenue versus expenditures on the last page. I guess it's the last page. They're not numbered, but I'm assuming that's how I have them stapled anyway. With the Parks and Recs, the fund, beginning with revenue on Parks and Recs and expenditures on Parks and Recs, that thing. That, to me, when I do the math in my head, we'll come up with a negative number, revenue versus expenditures. Is that made up in our normal budget, or how does that work normally?
Are you looking at a particular department, or are you looking at a?
I'm looking, let's look for, I'll just pick one, not picking at anybody. Let's look at Parks and Recs. 9/30/2020, we have an actual revenue of 1,073,000, and then we have expenditures of 1,062. So just simple math, that's about $11,000 to the positive brought in from that department. Getting down to front of the court, looks like actual revenue from front of the court was 530,000, and they expended 673. So that's plus or minus 120. Commission on Aging, given that same set of factors, about 118,000 in the hole. Child Care Fund, roughly 200,000 plus in the hole. Central Dispatch, 400,000 in the hole. Inspections up 310,000, and recycling down about 150,000. Are those numbers accounted for in our first page? I mean, where are those losses being shown at in this
So in the
document?
first
Is
couple
it
pages of
under
the
total
in the first couple pages of the document, that is the general fund.
Okay,
Okay, so the first couple pages of the document is the general fund. These
okay,
are funds. These are not general fund dollars.
okay,
The first few pages of this is just general fund. This
gotcha.
is looking at our other funds. So if you look at like parks, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So yes, Chairman, you're looking at that correctly. And Margaret said those first couple pages are the general fund. These back here, we kind of give a very overhead view of where they're at with revenues and expenditures. And so those losses or, additions, if you see revenues over expenditures or vice versa, that is all within their own fund and their own fund balance. So
Okay.
if you look at Parks and Rec, I mean, if this stayed the same, this is preliminary, but if it stayed the same, just how it is now, you are correct. They would be adding about $11,000 to their fund balance. Then you look at someone like Friend of the Court. Now they do have more revenues that are expected to come in. That's why this is preliminary.
Mhm.
But even if they were short on the revenues, let's say by 10,000 or so, that has already been looked at and accounted for when we do our budget and looked at throughout the year, that they have enough fund balance to cover that. And in some years, when you have some of these bigger funds like Commission on Aging and Parks that have the fund balance and say they want to do a project that year that, is cost $100,000 or so, if there's not enough money in revenues to cover it, they start looking at the fund balance of what can cover it. So we make sure as a whole for these funds, there is enough fund balance in there that will cover it. So it may some years it may, we may add, some years we may use, depending on what they have going on that year.
Okay.
That's separate from general
Said that better than
fund.
I could have. Thanks, Melissa. So
Yeah, that explained that. Yep, go ahead, Margaret,
Okay.
sorry.
the other point is that the general fund is not moving funds over to those funds. The only fund that we have a real issue with, I'm going to use the word issue, and I hate to use that because it's always interpreted so negatively, but there's an ongoing issue, as we all know, with recycling. And, you and I talked about some options, and moving into the new year, I've actually, this is kind of unofficial, but I've had the opportunity to have a really good relationship relationship with one of the professors at Central Michigan in the public administration field. And she has me come in every fall and speak to one of her classes, and it's one of the best part. I love that day. But it also has entitled us to have the pickings of interns. And I have had nothing but tremendous interns of people who have done big projects for us that you probably aren't even aware we had an intern help us with. So I've been offered an intern from this department, which I have said, yes, I want. She's already done an internship for the federal government. She's done an internship for state government. She seems to be the shining star in the department. And the professor contacted me and said, yeah, she wants to do a local internship. I would love to have her work with you. And I've told them that, yes, I want her. I've seen her resume. I've read her cover letter. The project I'm going to have her working on, and again, this is a public meeting, so anybody can be listening, that's fine. I haven't announced it anyplace else, but I feel the need to say this. The project I'm going to have her working on is helping us come to some public policy recommendations regarding the funding of the MRF. So that's going to be her big project starting after the first of the year. And we'll be working with her, and I'll have Jake working with her, and I'll have Melissa working with her, and Chris from my staff who does a lot of the accounting. So that's something we need to tackle head on of how we're going to pay for that, because currently it's just the financing mechanism is not working.
Okay. Yeah, I guess too, in regards to now getting back to the front page on the preliminary numbers, I know these are all preliminary and I'm not going to freak out when I see 4.5 because you explained 4.2 we anticipate coming in. Charges for services we anticipated being down. I mean, that's just common sense when the county was closed up and everything. I don't think anybody that anticipated that number of the 632. I don't see that changing much. You explained some other ones, 150 coming in or getting taken out. So again, no, I still think we're going to probably be a little light, but you explained use of the fund balance, and we got to wait for all the numbers to come in. I'm just, like I said, I'm just a little, those numbers scared me. You cleaned up most of them. So that was a good thing. I saw that, like I said, when you see 4.5, but like I said, I knew there's more coming in. You always got to keep booking revenue, and it counts on the 930 numbers. So I just wanted that explained. I think you did a good job on that. I think, we're still, you just never know. But again, if we budgeted 1.3 of our fund balance and you're telling me it looks like we're going to use 600, again, using 600 is never a good thing. But this 2020 year has just been, I don't know.
Right.
I'm not even going to use the words. It's been 2020. We'll just leave it at
Right.
that. So.
Also remember that a large portion of that 600,000 we're going to use that we're paying for the jail project billings so far, and those will be reimbursed to us. So we're not using that 600,000 because we're overspent in a whole lot of areas. That's really what the purpose of that is. The other thing to remind you too in the general fund is that, if we are looking at, I'll just use an example. Let's say facilities. Let's say the facilities department, because we had to buy so many different cleaning, so much more cleaning project this year. We'll just use that for an example. If in the facilities department, they went over on a line item by $15,000 because of something that happened, there's probably $15,000 if you look through all their line items within there that we can make that up, or it's in the general fund. So if the administrator's office is under budget by $25,000 in our expenditures and facilities is over by 15,000, that all washes out at the bottom of the line of the general fund. So I'm never concerned in the general fund if we, there's things that happen, there's occurrences that happen in departments, and we take care of that. We do those budget adjustments as we go along. And then at the end of the year, if there's some outlander that's like, now what happened there? And, we look into it and we talk about it or whatever, we transfer that money around. So the general fund, you're looking at $20 million there. If somebody is $5,000 over, there's probably $5,000 someplace else in the fund in another department to move that over. So I think we're going to be okay.
Well, and I'm not going to speak for Tobin here, but I'm looking at my screen. I see Melissa in the top, Margaret and Steve. So you three are the budgeters, as I say, in our organization. You seem to have the best handle on the budget. So, yeah, like I said, I always get a little nervous when I see these numbers and everything, but I know, over the years I've seen them come down. And again, it's just always an estimate or a snapshot in time. It's not a fixed piece of sculpture, as we say.
Yeah, we
I
try
don't
to
know where I
give
come,
you.
I don't know where I come up with this stuff. I went to museum on Saturday. What can I tell you? I got all these things.
Oh.
in my head now.
There you go.
Yeah.
So no, you know, again, this has been a crazy year and yeah, we'll just leave it at that. So I got nothing further. Tobin, how about you? Anything?
No, sir. I have nothing else.
All right, there's somewhere we got to make a motion here, I think.
I'll make that motion that we
Okay.
consider accepting and placing on file the fiscal year 2020 fourth quarter financial report as presented.
I will support that. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. We'll go forward. Okay, next up, invoice list discussion. Margaret, Tobin, if you don't mind, I'll got a quick question on the October 30th, and this could just be me, maybe I'm not interpreting. It's on the $40,000 to Michigan State. It says first quarter MOA. Is that memorandum of agreement? Is that the 4H? What is?
Yeah, that's Michigan State University Extension.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's the contract that you folks approve every year.
Yeah, I just didn't ever see the words MOA. Maybe it was, and I just never, so. Yeah, nothing on that one. Everything we've seen before. And I didn't think I had anything on the other one. They were mostly, a lot of them were payments on there. Here we go, right here. I didn't see anything. Tobin, how about yourself? Anything?
No, I didn't see anything that I didn't know what it was, so.
So they use the term MOA for, I think, as a memorandum of agreement.
Right.
We call it a contract.
Yeah, like I said, I just never saw those initials used before. Maybe we were, and I just always just glossed over it, knowing kind of what it was, but I just wanted to triple double, so
They
Okay.
could be adding that differently this year, but that's what that's for.
that's fine. I got nothing else on those. Tobin, you, nothing?
Nothing.
All right, Nicole / Michelle, any public on the line?
No, Mr. Chairman, there is not.
Okay, Tobin, you got anything to add?
I do not, sir.
All right. I'd just like to say before I close that I'm looking forward serving and working with Tobin again for the next 2+ months, 2 years, 2 months, or whatever we got going on. And that's all I got. So at 10:57, we will adjourn.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.